Continuing, you can have some very basic follow-up questions to the introduction of bom dia, boa tarde, oi, tudo bem. You can say tudo bem, tudo bom, is everything well, is everything good. Tudo is everything, bem is well, and bom is good. Pretty much interchangeable, tudo bem, tudo bom. You could say tem passado bem. This is once again very Portuguese. You're not going to see many people in Brazil use this. Como vai? Como está? How's it going? How are you? So you have vai, which is go, you go, they go. And está, which is the active to be term. So como vai? Como está? Very matter of fact, I would say that this is professional. This is a very straightforward way to ask a question, a follow-up question to bom dia. And then to say goodbye, you can say até logo, até amanhã. See you soon, see you tomorrow. Logo is soon, amanhã is tomorrow. You can say tchau, which is just bye. I say tchau all the time to people. This is a very, very normal, informal way. You could say adeus, which is also informal to say goodbye. So you just have some very informal ways to talk. And so here we can, what's the difference between formality and informality, looking at social hierarchies and things like that. So we have this other article, Winning Friends and Influencing People Abroad, Using Native Speakers' Communicative Strategies. So here we have just a very basic introduction to Oliveira. She's a retired English as a second language professor in Europe. This was published in 1992, but really a good article. I think it gives a really great breakdown of Portuguese. So when communicating within our native environment, we subconsciously make use of a variety of communicative techniques, which we have learned as a result of years of personal observation and various socialization processes. However, when we enter an environment which is foreign to us, we generally do not have the luxury of spending years to acquire the communicative strategies which native speakers possess and practice. In order to acquire these skills rapidly, we need to be made aware of the strategies which underlie appropriate behavior. When it's appropriate to use something more formal or less formal, practicing them consciously until they are internalized. So, following up on this, in this article, the author will examine certain strategies involved in the construction of conversation and social relationships. Greetings, addressing strangers, establishing an address from relationships, and when deemed appropriate, renegotiating that relationships. In doing so, we will touch on several issues commonly considered in the vast literature dealing with language in society: politeness, address forms, negotiation of relationships, public image, greetings, and rituals. Obviously, no single article could possibly address adequately all of these broad research areas, nor present all of the strategies which foreigners should learn. The strategies presented here have been singled out for their importance and immediate utility in establishing a personal or professional relationship in a foreign culture. So this is looking beyond Portuguese. We're looking at Portuguese as an example. Oliveira is a Portuguese speaker. She's from Portugal. And there's a whole bunch of examples. Even in the article, they're going to give some Portuguese examples. But really, this applies towards every language. So this is a screenshot here. You can see in various different levels of social titles and things like that are getting used. So we have Senhora Dona, which more or less translates to Miss, and then the first name. So you have Dona first name. So if you wanted to do Miss Maria, Miss Betsy, you would sort of have this rather formal set of social titles that get used. You can also see that there's another way to take this up a level. And if you wanted to use someone's professional or educational title, which in Brazil is very common, if you have a PhD, if you're a lawyer, or if you're a doctor, you will see people being addressed as doctora or directora, principal. And that would be sort of Directora Maria, Directora Betsy. You would include that person's name in addition to that title. You can see here greetings too. We got different tiers of greetings. So you can look at how we would address complete strangers. is very different than how we address acquaintances. The speaker may or may not know each other's name, but they might interact every day as like in a business relationship. You go to a diner, you go to a restaurant, you go to an office, and there's a receptionist. You might not know the receptionist's name, but you've met them a few times, so you can be a little less formal. Friends and social associates with whom one interacts socially only in domains outside of the home. So still, you're going to be a little bit more formal. And then you have tier 4, friends and associates with whom one interacts socially in the domains both inside and outside the home. So you might be calling someone a friend or a colleague, or you might have a nickname for someone, and that might be something very different. Greeting strategies when entering a room. So this is something, I think these are all strategies that are great for intercultural communications. What's a greeting strategy that you can take if you're not necessarily 100% sure about the greetings you should use? When entering a room in an office, bank, or store, greet those who are there using the minimal greeting, which is appropriate for the time of day. Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite. When passing friends or acquaintances on the street, greet them using either the minimal greetings or by initiating a short conversation. Bom dia, tudo bem? Good morning, how are you? Asking after the other's well-being and that of their family. To minimize, in strategy 3, the verbal manifestation of status, differential roles, choose a neutral form which may optionally reflect a shared social categorization. So let's say you're on the street or you're in a professional setting. No one really has professional titles, or like I got a doctorate, so I interact with people with doctorates all the time. But it's really weird for us once you get to that level, calling people doctor all the time. Like you sort of stop using it once you become equals at that point. So you might say colega, colleague, or vizinho, neighbor. Like, hey neighbor, hey vizinho. I use that all the time. Oi vizinho, tudo bem? Very informal, right? But I'm just sort of minimizing that. And then oi colega or colega, I have a question for you. Tenho uma pergunta para você. Right, I'm going to go and I'm going to be using sort of a neutral but still respectful term. So, when you're learning a different language or doing cross-cultural communication, very important to understand what those neutral differential statements can be. Strategies for determining a stranger's status. Rely on a third party or other outside source to provide the appropriate information regarding the educational background or social class of the stranger. I ask people all the time, who is this person? What's that person's name? What do they do? Who are they? 99% of the time, people are like, oh, that's this person. This person's great. The third party is present and introduces two strangers. Ask people to be introduced all the time. Sometimes I forget who people are, even though I've met them all the time. So I still ask and I still whisper, who's this person again? Tell me this person. Really try to make sure you understand who a person is, not just their names or their relationship to you, but like, who is this person? It's really important. The third party is not present at the meeting between the strangers, but provides information behind the scenes. WhatsApp, Facebook messages, emails, things like that. Oh, remind me who this person is again. Situation 3, access information regarding the stranger's title is through written media, like a business card, stationery heads. If you enter an intercultural conversation, do your research and see if you can find any other evidence of a conversation you've had with them, and try to use that to inform your future conversation. Show respect and show knowledge of them. I once had a friend of my mother-in-law. I completely forgot who they were, and I completely forgot who I met them, because I met them at a barbecue and I'd probably had like 6 beers. I met them like 3 years after the fact. I'm like, oh, tell me who you are again. And they were so offended. I'm never going to forget that. Strategy 2, observe how others address him or her and choose as an initial form one from the highest level category. So if someone's saying senor or doctor, sir or doctor, just repeat that, and they might correct you like, oh, you don't need to use that term with me, or like, thank you, but you can use my first name, right? In the absence of other information, use manner of dress as a guideline in addressing the stranger. If someone's wearing a doctor's outfit, call them doctor. If someone's wearing a lawyer's outfit in Brazil, they sort of wear these judges' uniforms, even if they're just a lawyer in the court. They all use sort of these very lawyerly outfits. You can call them doctor as well. Negotiation strategies. So this is going beyond just the idea that there is There is a title. You want to find out, either directly or in a directory, how the hearer likes being addressed or what form the hearer is generally known as. Use the zero form avoidance tactic, você, so you, while listening to carefully to discover what forms the other uses and then note the interaction. In Portuguese, você is a very neutral term. You is a very neutral term. Obviously, even in English, you can use you incorrectly. Use other criteria for choosing the address form, irrespective of the form the other uses. So try to find that information as best as possible, right? Strategies for renegotiating an address form relationship. So how do you sort of restart the relationship? Shall we stop this você bit? Are we going to stop using você everywhere? Can I use a different term? Actually go and address the person. Is there a better term I can use? I like using você because it's neutral, but can I call you something else? Can I use your first name or can I use your last name? I remember I was doing a Facebook interaction. I did some Facebook business with someone and their name was Michael, and I remember I never addressed them, and I was like, can I call you Mike? And he's like, no, call me Michael, right? So just that I could tell he appreciated that I asked, right? Wouldn't it be easier if we address each other by tu? Tu is used a lot more in Portugal than it is in Brazil. I wouldn't use tu in Brazil. So if you use tu in Brazil, which is very close to Spanish, right? If you're using tu in Brazil, people are going to see you as sort of weird, right? So most people are going to be like, don't use the word tu, right? Use the word você. You can also see in Brazilian Portuguese, people use the word se. So the shortened version of você, they'll just use se. Você tá bem? Are you well? Você tá bem? Você está bem? They'll shorten it up, right? Be a little less formal. Ask to use the new form. For example, do you mind if I address you by tu? Always good to ask, right? Ask how others like or prefer to be addressed. This is a strategy of renegotiating the title that you use and interact with people. We got some strategies here also that we can go on. Invite others to use a new form. Introduce yourself in a new way. Like, you don't have to call me você or senor. You can call me tu. You can call me Jason. Clue verbally the change in a new form. I'm going to begin addressing you by tu. So announce it. Be very clear. Intercultural communication. Shorten that strategy. Less words mean the better. Being direct. Not giving options for a lot of random interpretation is always really good in intercultural communication. Initiate use of the new form without prior cluing. Take a humorous approach to trying to force use of tu or the informal. Trying to create intimacy, and then spontaneous or subconscious use of the new form, probably due to subconscious feeling of rapport, can also happen as well. So you might accidentally start calling people by a name, and it might just be naturalized. I have a friend, Chia Betchi, Aunt Beth. Even her children call her Chia Betchi. So their mother is called Aunt Beth because everybody calls her Chia Betchi, but she's not my Chia. I call her Chia Betchi when I address people, but I just call her Betchi because I feel like she's my friend and my equal, and I don't necessarily like the idea of calling her Chia Betchi when I'm just addressing her one-on-one. Strategies for maintaining distance. Sometimes you don't want to create intimacy between individuals. Sometimes you want to maintain that formality. Begin using a form of higher number level than the one normally used. Either begin with a form which represents a difference of 1 or 2 levels, or alternatively use Vossa Excelência. This is like what you would call the Pope if you used Vossa in Portuguese. So you generally don't use this, but this is like the most formal, highest level that you could use. Like, I don't know what to call you. I'm going to call you Vossa Excelência. I would not recommend using this unless it's like an extreme situation and you're like in a courtroom or something like that. Avoid making eye contact with the other person. Definitely not a great situation, but imagine you're in like a street situation and you have like a seller trying to like really push something on you, and you're like, they understand you're a foreigner and there's this weird thing, just, stop engaging if it's a really aggressive situation. Or even more direct, like, I don't want to talk to you. Não quero falar contigo, right? Just this very direct statement, like, I don't really want to continue this conversation, right? Important to talk about. So in conclusion, we can look at lingua francas. We can look at the common language that we have. You can see that languages create hierarchies, and we always want to be very conscious of these social hierarchies. And then we want to plan a communication strategy that creates the social situation that we hope to create. So we want to use language to build the world that we hope for.